Hello everyone and welcome to the Deep Blue Renegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deep Blue Renegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 127. Today is Sunday, March 20th, and I'm glad you could join me today. It's actually chilly enough today for a sweater for the first day of spring. It's too cold for just a t-shirt. But as you can tell, the fact that I'm not wearing the chocolate Shetland fleece sweater would imply that it is not done, because I would have totally been wearing the crap out of that today. So I suppose I should just show that first. I was pretty sure that I could finish Friday. Or on Friday I was pretty sure that I could finish before the podcast. And that was a lie. I worked quite a bit on this Friday and quite a bit on this Saturday, and there is still collar left to knit. But that being said, and there's a sleeve to attach, and all sorts of other such nonsense. But it will be super duper warm and lovely, and now that the collar is on, wait a second. Okie doke, sorry. If there's been a strange wardrobe change, then whatever. My husband needs some help, so. But now my husband does not need help, so yay! So the sweater is looking pretty cute. It's actually really cute when the front collar goes out like this, and then at some point this collar is supposed to fetchingly go in like this, and it's supposed to be all up, and then you can button it up. And I still haven't made the little button holders either on this. I'm probably going to use all of this skein of yarn for this collar, so it's going to be ridiculous. It's supposed to be like 8 inches of collar. It's a lot of collar. But I'm now, implementing the floppy part of the collar instead of the stiff part of the collar. But I think that this will be a great sweater. As you can tell, it's fitting nicely over my other sweater, so I could have most ultimate knit sweater action. And I was a little worried about it, and I felt a lot better about it once the collar went on. Like, I was a little worried. I was just like swimming, and it didn't look right, and now I'm pretty happy. So, like, could it be a bit wide in the shoulder? Sure, but it's cool. It's supposed to be big, and it is a good size. So, I'm looking forward. But it may be, like, what I've been debating about is whether or not I just want to save it for Stash Dash, if you know what I mean. Because I can finish the collar, I can attach the other sleeve, and I can just wait to knit those little tabs until Stash Dash, and I will get all of the yardage. Because it isn't like there are going to be that many 60-degree days until next fall. So the fact that it will remain nearly finished for some time doesn't bother me so much. So I think that's going to be the plan. So it might be nearly finished next week, but I'll trot it out again in May and have it be really finished. So I think that's the way it's going to go. But it's definitely quite a lot of sweater, so you can see. Like, you can't even see how far down it goes. So, it's going to be a very nice piece when it's done. So, excitement there. And I was a little bit worried the sleeves were going to be too small, and they're fine. So, I was holding off on finishing one sleeve until I attached this one, and sleeve is attached. I put the stockinette side out, and maybe that ruins the aesthetic of the sweater, but it was way easier to seam. It's way easier to mattress stitch stockinette, because I mattress stitched my side seams, and the really obvious seams. It wasn't the normal, like, I don't know if there's an equivalent of mattress stitching purls together, but it made for a clear seam instead of a subtle seam, and maybe I could have seamed everything inside out, but yeah. I think the seam that she had recommended in the pattern or Thea Coleman had recommended in the Mold Cider pattern was a different type, and I couldn't figure out how to do it from the Principles of Knitting book, and I was like, mattress stitch, and I hadn't realized the mattress stitch was not going to be an invisible seam with the reverse stockinette side out. So, yeah, oh. But it's actually pretty cozy, so I'm probably going to wear the sweater for the rest of the show. I'd be wearing the crap out of this if it was done. And I guess in terms of the knitting of things, this one is partially seamed right now, so partially seamed. I finished the cap, or I finished the increases at Knitting Friday. I finished the cap at the LYS on Saturday, and I still have the 2 balls attached to this. So there is no worries on yarn, which is nice, and I haven't snipped the threads yet, because I'll figure I'll eventually be whacking this in somewhere. And then I'll ease the sweater sleeve in. It was a little bit messy easing this one in, I think because I was attaching stockinette to reverse stockinette, but yeah, I think it made it much simpler to do because of whatever. Most simpler to do just because I really prefer doing the stockinette. So this is almost there, but not quite, and honestly I just, like, it kept looking like it was going to be more and more time in order to finish, so had I maybe dedicated every single little bit of my time, maybe it would have been mostly done, but I underestimated how much that was going to take. The other project that is going is the Simple Spike Socks, which is my new name for the socks. It is really the Simple Skype Socks, or Skip Rib Socks, but I'm just filled with spite with these socks. So you'll see I've got metal needles. That's why I went to the local yarn shop yesterday, because I was tired of not being able to work on my socks because I had too many broken needles. So I will probably write to Knitter's Pride. I ended up, whatever. I still have the original packaging that I bought the needles in, and I ended up buying them in Indiana, so it isn't the case where I can just go to my LYS owner and be like, fix these, this is stupid. She actually had to special order them in for me. So at least one of the needles would be pretty easy to fix with Gorilla Glue. The other needle is legitimately broken. Like the little shaft that the metal piece goes onto is definitely not there anymore. So it's just toast. So I got a set of Hi-Hi's. They didn't have the sharps in stock in 00, but the regular Hi-Hi double points are in fact plenty sharp. So the yarn is Indigo Dragonfly in their dragon sock, and it is it's still knitting up gorgeous. I'm not dissatisfied with how the yarn is knitting up or how well the yarn is taken to frogging. It's just that I've been working on these socks since the 1st of January, and I'm not even done with one yet. But I've probably settled upon the appropriate way to knit the socks. And I finally have tools which aren't going to fall apart on me anymore. So I think these are all positive vectors. And that it is very likely that these will finally get moving. Because they are socks for me. And normally that would be far more motivating than, for example, socks for the Dearly Lovable one. So it is coming along. So heel is turned, gusset is being made. I ended up ripping back a little bit because I ended up, for some reason, getting some loose stitches on the bottom of the foot, and I just knew that was going to wear out fast because they were noticeably very loose. And these are wicked sharp, so definitely living in the knitting bag for whatever in my little printed circuit bag that Jody made for me. Because Jody's awesome. Yeah, that's enough. So, I think I ended up putting the broken ones inside so that all the pieces would stay together. But man, it has increased my spite of the socks. Now, I did spend a little bit of time working on that at the, I spent a little bit of time working on it on the go. It was a much better on the go project than my sweater was. I worked a little bit on it Friday night at knitting until another needle started to fall apart, and that was the end of that. And then I knew I needed to do something in order to keep working on it. There was just no fixing that. And then I started something new, which probably would imply that I could have finished my sweater had I not been distracted by this, but I was excited. I wound up my Mirror Lake from the Three Waters Farms hand spun, the nearly 1,400 yards of cobweb singles for light lace. And I started a citron. And I decided to call this project the Handspun Crescent Citron because I am doing a totally different shaping than the pattern calls for. So what I'm using from the citron pattern is basically the spacing between the ruched bits, and I used the crescent shaping from the Fragile Heart shawl because I figured that was a pretty neat construction. And I already have probably at least 100 stitches on the needles. I just finished the second ruching part, and I figured out a method in order to keep track of what was going on. So it'd be the case where the citron is normally a half circle shape. So it'd be the case where what you end up doing is you have several rows, and this is a free knitting pattern, so I am giving away no secrets. So it'd be the case where they have basically a 20-row repeat of which, 6 or 7 rows or something like that are ruching rows, and then the other 12 or 13 or something like that are plain rows. But embedded in those plain rows are 2 rows which end up expanding out the circle in the appropriate half-circle fashion. So it's the case where you knit a couple rows, and then you evenly increase 24 stitches, and then you knit some more rows and then add more. So I am happy so far with things are going. I ended up putting this on US size 2 needles, so 2.75 millimeter, and that was because this is really fine. Honestly, I'm trying to make it an awful lot like my Rainbow Daybreak that I made, because I think it was very similar, so it'd be the case where I made that with singles. I knit it on 2s because I sort of wanted it to be a bit more dense. And basically it's the fact that I'm probably babying this yarn a little bit. So 2s are still having this knit up in a pretty loose, airy gauge. I'm really liking the fabric I'm getting with the 2s. Had I had 1s, I would probably be knitting it on 1s, but I don't have 1s with that long of a cable because I'm not a magic looper. So, yeah, such is life. And let's see. And the rows are already really long, so this is going to be a slog. Actually, that reminds me that I probably... So what I'm going to do is actually mark my progress with my one lobster claw stitch marker, because this is looking to be a pretty long-term project in the grand scheme of things. I was tempted to cast on my Hit a Few Day, but I'm not quite done with the sweater yet. I'm crazy, but not so crazy to have two sweaters on the needles at the same time. So I started the simple project so that I would have something so that I can wait for Lindsay to catch up with me so she's ready to cast on her Hit a Few Day. And I know she's finishing up. She's working on her second sandbank, and it's been giving her fits, so... So she's in the ribbing of her sandbank, so this is going to be a slight delay, so it may be that I end up casting on the Hit a Few Day next week, and then we can have 3 months of Molly working on 2 projects. Again. So I probably should have waited a little bit, but I was carrying around my skein, and then I really wanted to cast it on after I got back from from Holly's Yarn Shop, which is my LYS. And it was just the case where I couldn't wait any longer. I guess I was super duper bored with the sweater. And knowing that I was still pretty far away from the socks as well. So these things will probably get wrapped up. It's just sort of incredibly soothing and fascinating to just be basically doing plain knitting in between. And I think it's the case where there's a small enough spacing in between the rows that, what is it? There's a small enough spacing in between rows that you can just sort of sit back and relax and just do knits and purls, and then do little funny fiddly increases at either end and go from there. The other thing that I was doing to help keep track on this pattern was I actually ended up putting in, because the increases are different, this means that my crescent shape is continuing to expand during the ruching section. So I actually ended up putting markers in so I wouldn't decrease away any of the increases I made for the ruche. So that just means that I end up having 14 stitches on either end when I launch into the decrease row. And that seemed to work out. That seemed to work fairly well for keeping things right. And I just guesstimated 14 stitches for the first one because I realized I was in a little bit of trouble after I was going to launch into the decrease row to basically undouble my stitches. And it turned out that I put the markers in for the next section, and that actually worked, and the count was correct, and then life was happy. And I'm almost done with the fiddly bit. Fiddly bit. Almost complete. Okay, fiddly bit is complete. So it's not super duper fiddly, you just have to pay a little bit of attention. So I'm now into the next color. The next one after this will be a sort of maroony red, and then it goes into orange, but I always sort of liked how the blue would be near my face. So you know how that goes. So I will take my one lobster cod stitch marker from the most ultimate massive sweater bag, which cannot contain my sweater anymore, and I'll move it over. So and hopefully lobster claw won't be too much of a perturbation, but see, lobster claw. And we'll see how far I get in a week, or if I'm being naughty and working on this instead of my projects that are way, way, way closer to completion, because there is so much yarn here. Oh my gosh. So I will perhaps at some point be filled with self-loathing and regret ever starting this project, but for now it's exciting and fascinating. The last thing I wanted to share with you guys, because this guy's going to be short, because who knows when I'll be interrupted to help fix the car, is I am spinning away on the silk hankies. I won't be done by the end of next week, but There you go, silk hankies on the shaft. So it seems like this one is finally getting smaller than the other one, so I'm taking 2 of this because I have 2 hankies of this, and then which of this colorway, which is I think Mauve Boudoir, and this one is Renaissance, and it is these colors. And then what I do is I basically prep out one sequence of colors and then spin them end to end. And I'm picking the same spots in that whole dealio. Okay, let me finish, and then I'll be done.
Look at Jason too.
Okay, alright. Okay, so I need to end this quickly. I should be able to record next week. I believe that'll be March 27th. And I look forward to talking to you guys then. So take care, guys. Bye-bye.